Welcome to Win-Loss Week. My name is Scott Varner. We're here with Drake Lenhan from Sitecore, talking about how to use metrics to build an ROI-based win-loss program. But most importantly, Drake, I'd love to have you introduce yourself, talk about your role at Sitecore.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Drake Lenhan. I lead our market intelligence at Sitecore. What that is a little bit of analyst relations, competitive intelligence, win-loss, market research, industry research, and disseminating that to our ecosystem.
Yeah, would it be fair to say you have a superpower with digging out metrics and using those to really make sure the org is getting value?
Yeah, I think anybody who knows me, I love data. So
Yeah.
being able to find those little story points that show impact or where lack of impact are really important to us.
Okay, well, let's hear about how you took that superpower and applied it to win-loss. What was the situation in laying the foundation for Sitecore's program?
Yeah, so originally I was in enablement. We had divested in our CI program, something that I had worked with that team previously to help build and disseminate out to our sales teams. What we kept hearing over and over from our sales leaders is we're getting crushed out there by our competitors. We're kind of flying blind. And when we dug in to see what that reality was, the numbers told the same story. Our win rates were declining. We needed more pipeline just to kind of stay afloat for our forecasts. And that had real sizable bookings impact for us. So those numbers told the story for us.
Yeah. And how did you, what were your inputs when you were gathering those numbers? How did you identify that story?
We have a really good data team. That's really important that you have your data kind of in a structured way. So finding the numbers wasn't the problem, which in previous organizations that is a challenge, but the numbers were there. We kind of combed through them. We looked at different stages and how frequently we were seeing competitors versus maybe a non-competitive deal. And we were seeing quite the high numbers of competes versus non-competes. And then you look at the delta of win rate from where you are and where industry says you should be, and the bookings impact, and that's really easy to report. And then for us, we see a high concentration with just a few vendors. So to get it right with, an Adobe is our main competitor, to get it right with an Adobe, it could be worth €2 million to us just between win rate today versus benchmark for one quarter. So you can start finding those quick wins and where you want to focus first before you start looking at the long tail.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned that getting the numbers was not the hard part. Where I see the hard part typically happen is convincing stakeholders, especially executives, that they need to do something with the numbers. Mm-hmm. How did you navigate that?
Yeah, so I think bringing them along for the journey on the onset. So I have a sales background, and so connecting with those sales leaders across the global company. So EMEA is just as important as America's as APJ. So it's finding the right champions in our sales leadership, but also our top sellers to come along for that journey. And so we were looking at what are some of those needs, and we started with win-loss. We need to understand why we're winning, why we're losing, before we then go start exploring the areas where we need to button up. So they came along for the vendor discoveries, the demos, et cetera. They were bought into this from the onset. The other piece is getting sellers to put stuff into CRM so you can kind of connect those dots. It's extremely difficult. I was a seller. I saw it as an admin task too. It's just marketing just wants me to do these things, so they may or may not report. I think by bringing them along for the journey and them seeing the impact these data points we're going to make, really kind of kick that into gear. And so from ground zero, where we're doing this extremely manually, to today, 2 years later, night and day difference. Really, most of our sellers putting in meaningful notes into CRM that we can then extrapolate into Clozd and other tools to get that full picture.
Yeah, and I'm sure the outcome that you're hoping for, the outcome the org is seeing is let's improve our win rate, mm-hmm. which is incredibly difficult to do. How did your team specifically drive impact on improving win rate?
Yeah, so it's really important to track these figures. I'm really proud. We just did finished our fiscal year, so we know how we performed year over year. Now, proud to report 52% increase in net new win rate year over year, which is tremendous. How we did that. So we started with win-loss, understanding why we win, why we lose, of course, that's win-loss. But also, who do we see the most? We have 400 plus competitors in our space, but what we found is really it's 7 of them that we're seeing over 80% of the time. One of them is almost half of our competitive pipeline, and it's the one that we see the most. So we really just hyper focused on those 7, even more focused on the one that we see almost half the time, and just getting it right, getting the narrative right, understanding why people were choosing us or not choosing us. And it was a positioning thing. What we found is it wasn't features or lack thereof features. It was a positioning thing, and understanding the use case. So really kind of disseminating that to the groups, working with product marketing, sales to get this right and to get our positioning and our kind of approach in the sales process right. And that saw that tremendous growth in win rate year over year this past year.
Yeah. Well, and at the heart of your program, you do leverage third-party interviews to some extent, but a lot of it is driven by you having your own interviews and using the Clozd tool. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about like how talking to customers helped you kind of hone in and drive that impact against those key competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were doing this manually. Clozd has been a godsend. Super manual before. Clozd lets us automate a lot of the processes. We're estimating plus 50% time savings based on what we're doing with Clozd. But yeah, we do a lot of our own interviews. We kind of prefer it that way because it does give us a lot of the insights that we're looking for. We get to kind of expand on certain questions. We've evolved since we started. You know, we were kind of asking some generic, kind of broader win-loss questions just to understand the landscape. And when we started seeing that it's not the features or lack thereof that's losing the deals, it's more kind of how we're positioning, how others are positioning. We started diving in deeper into those specific areas and being able to give those specific insights back to the business, which is now in Clozd. My C-suite's in Clozd. My CEO is asking the rest of our C-suite, "Hey, what did you get from that Clozd interview?" So it's bringing everybody along for the journey and just having everything in one spot.
Yeah. How is maybe AI also impacting you specifically?
Yeah, AI helps us move faster. We have AI built into every process that we have, but it's also helping us disseminate the information and the insights better. So we have certain prompts that we'll use. It's definitely, there's prompts we use with Clozd that'll put the summaries out there. But we also use Copilot. We're a Microsoft ISV. We have Copilot throughout our entire organization. And so we're linking tools like Clozd. We use Crayon for our competitive intelligence side, different data sources that my market intelligence team provides, and it kind of connects all of the dots based on prompts. So we're creating a competitive agent that will take win-loss valuable insights and can slice it by competitor, why we lose against our top competitor. It'll take the battle cards, and we have play sheets for our top 7, which is beyond battle cards and into every time you run into this competitor, run this play. It's going to help you and your customers see the difference in the best way. And our Copilot competitive agent can actually create by the template we've created, a strategic competitive differentiation strategy for each deal.
Yeah. So you're really making sure you're getting the information, all of the tools into the hands of the seller, into the hands of people. Have you ever been surprised by some of the stories you've heard of ways sellers have used those insights on specific deals?
I haven't been surprised, just seller background, so I'm kind of thinking through the lens of the seller when I create a lot of these things. Haven't been surprised. I have been delighted by some of the feedback we get. We just had our SKO. One of the feedback points from my session was, I love the competitor hotline. I've used it on every single deal I've won this year. And the competitor hotline is before we built the competitive strategy agent, we had an email alias, competitors@sitecore.com. People can send in their opportunities, some of the ask, and we would take some of a white glove service, even above and beyond the play sheets, the battle cards, and integrate the win-loss into, here's your specific deal strategy. And that's kind of what evolved into the competitive Copilot, is it's doing that so we can white glove that service for every single deal, self-serve for our sellers, but we're still running the hotline too for when they want a little additional support or some maybe market-facing collateral as well.
Yeah. I guess with that level of like easy access, that level of white glove service on every deal, it's no wonder your win rate went up as tremendously as it did.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the cool pieces, I love data. So we were digging through the data. One of the cool pieces that got buy-in from sellers to do this, what we found is like quarter over quarter. We're seeing this pattern of, you have a higher propensity to win if you've identified the competitor in, sales stage 2, while you're qualifying and scoping and discovery, than if you've done it later. What we were finding in our win-loss interviews is the people who are doing the things that we know to make them successful sellers, really understanding the full landscape and the business use cases, et cetera, were going to demo with a very tailored approach. And the demos were just absolutely quoted time and time again as the differentiator, the thing that won the deal. The flip side, when they didn't do those things, it was also the thing that was losing the deal. So when we dug into the data, what we found is these people who are crushing it with these demos know who their competitor is before they go to the demo. The people who aren't are the same people I'm seeing in the hotline who are like, hey, I just demoed against this competitor. How am I better? If you're asking it after you've demoed and you've done nothing up to that point for competing, what we found is you're actually 6.7 times more likely to win the deal when you know who you're up against, because you can plan that differentiation strategy. More importantly, you can validate that your customer cares about what that differentiation is. Because if they don't care and you demo it, you've shown them too much, the demo's generic, you lose. But if you understand, oh, these are our core differentiators against this competitor, you validate the customer cares about these 2, you show those 2, your competitor's gonna fall down. And that's the difference of 670% increase in win rate in those kind of 2 scenarios.
Yeah. 6.7 times, like that's an insight. And I think I've heard you say when you communicate the impact that can have to encourage other people to do it, 6.7, you can take that number into 670. I think your philosophy is bigger numbers help drive and reinforce the action.
That absolutely, bigger numbers. That's actually an important piece. So when you look at win rate, there's 2 ways you can look at it. You can say we increased it by 3 base points, 8 base points, or you can say proportionally that means X. It could be 50%, year on year, or what have you. Those bigger numbers, people stand up and they're like, oh, what does that mean? The other piece you can report it back to is what the CRO probably cares about, what the CEO probably cares about, the CFO, which is money. That means X amount of bookings. That means X amount of revenue. And we've been able to equate that back to both. So you have the 6.7X or 670%. You also have the millions of dollars in bookings and revenue that means.
Yeah, really driving home. Getting the number is not hard for you. Neither, it seems, is knowing who your audience is and how you need to communicate that number. So we've benefited so much from your learnings. Thinking back across your journey, what is the biggest piece of advice that you would share with somebody looking to see similar results?
Yeah, if you're starting from scratch, you have to get your data in the right hands. I know a lot of organizations aren't as data diligent as ours. We really do have a phenomenal BI team. You absolutely have to understand who your stakeholders are. Take them along for the ride, because they're going to be the people who are going to drive the things that you are going to rely on. You are going to rely on good contact data. They have to put it in there. You have to rely on them to want to put good contact data in so you can get the interviews. You are going to rely on them to input who the competitors were. You have to tell them why it's important not to select the first one that pops up and to actually select the real ones. That takes time, and you have to bring the sales leaders and the best sellers along for that journey. I would say once you've gotten that point, you have to show quick wins. So identify what your quick wins are. For us, we didn't know why we were winning or why we were losing or who we were winning or losing to. We identified those. We saw that huge pattern of the 7 who made up over 80% of our pipeline and the 1 that made up over half. Start there. Find your quick wins, prove the value quickly, and then we built a business case. We asked for budget by giving them small, medium, large kind of t-shirt sizes. We could do it ad hoc as today. We had the Harvey ball diagrams across all of the things of what you'll get, what you won't, if you invest at this level, at this level, at this level. And we ended up getting our large t-shirt size. Everybody tries to, including us, funneled it to the middle. Give me at least the middle. We got everything we asked for. So having the stakeholders along from the onset, by knowing who they are, what they care about, proving it, bringing them along through the journey, having those quick wins to prove the kind of ROI on the onset, and then presenting to them the trade-offs. If you invest at this level, you'll get this. It equates to this percentage or this bookings amount based on our quick wins. If you don't, here's the opportunity cost.
That is a rich answer worth studying. And it's been a great conversation, Drake. Thank you so much for sharing the insights with us. I know there's going to be a huge impact for people that just kind of follow your lead.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
All right.